Let's dive into the discussions shaping the nation.
15 minutes. I contributed to this previous debate on this issue, and we were addressing what exactly happened to Grace. And at the end of that debate, it was suggested that this House, as it represents the people, should insist on continuing to go back to the Grace case, to highlight the issues and to make sure that it was all dealt with. Since then, we've had various reports. We've had this report, and I have to say that I am shocked by the manner in which the report has been presented, by the language in the report, by the fact that you can hardly understand various parts of it. I am familiar with it, but in the course of reading the Farrelly Commission report, it is hard to piece it all together. And it is hard to believe that it has cost the state that much money. Now, I've heard senior government members say how bad the investigations are. It's hard to get what you want out of them, and so on and so on. In other words, that they're not fit for purpose, really. But yet, they were in government for more than one occasion. They had the opportunity to put in place an investigation, a commission of sorts, that would get to the truth, that would not cost this much money. And yet, what we're doing now is referring to the cost as if, and to the terms of reference, as if we should no longer do commissions of reports like this. It's incumbent on the government to establish the best practice for the future. But right now, we have this case. The question for this Dáil is, are we going to allow this report to sit? Are we going to walk out of this chamber and say, well, we've heard from everyone now, that's it? I don't think we should do that. We should pressurise the government to ensure that this case is fully dealt with. And I go back to the original terms of reference when they came before this House and presented by Finian McGrath. It was stated that they would only investigate Grace. And with the help of Brendan Howlin and others, it was impressed on the Minister that that was not good enough, and he had to withdraw those terms of reference, and he had to go away and include the 47 others. Now we're back to the same position again. Here's the Grace case, and forget the 47 others. I will not forget them. I will not forget them. And I will remind this House that as members representing people and this country, and the responsibility that should be shown by health services and so on, we should not forget them. Now, you may say that that's this, because I've heard it said, so many changes have taken place, this could never happen again. Well, ask Mrs. Jones about that, who has had an experience with Tusla that would shock you, where her and her husband lost their house because of an accusation of sexual abuse made against one of their children. Untrue, it was found. I raised it here in the Dáil Minister with previous ministers. I was given replies, we look into that, send me on the stuff, the paperwork, which I did. Not one single reply, not even a phone call did I get to say they're going to look after the Jones family. And there it is in another email, please don't forget me. The other case, and I want you, Minister, to understand that the Jones family would love to meet you to discuss what's happening today, not 30 years ago, but right now, today. I have another case where a child being cared for by Tusla is being exposed to abuse, allegedly, when he visits his father. Reported to Tusla, and Tusla refused to discuss it with the mother. That's today. Today, that's happening. What are you going to do about those two cases? To go back to Grace, we may have paid millions for this Farrelly report, but there was lots of reports there before this. But more importantly, there is the protected disclosure made by the whistleblower. So it wasn't the HSE that found out about this case of Grace and this foster home. It actually came up in the Public Accounts Committee under a procurement question, or a question on procurement, where we discovered that people that did work in the HSE were now set up privately and were giving reports on various issues paid for by the HSE to the HSE about issues that they were familiar with when they were in the HSE. You couldn't make it up. They're named in the context of the Farrelly Commission, and they're still employed, some of them, in Tusla. Now, if we're serious about safeguarding children, those facts have to be investigated. You cannot tell me that you're going to give it to somebody else to look at. That would be a disgraceful thing to do. It would be a shoddy thing to do. And it would be another effort to push the facts under the carpet. This home was not recognised as a home. It took children from the HSE, from the Brothers of Charity. It had private people coming in. The reports tell you how many in each year were in that house. The reports tell you in a factual way, how the house was constructed, where these people lived, outhouses. One child was kept under the stairs and was sexually abused. Another woman described how her daughter was sexually abused. And she describes it like this. She would take off her clothes. She would put herself into a position which was a sexualized position. And that could not have been done by a non-verbal, emotionally and mentally challenged person. And he felt that in that woman, implements had been inserted in her, and that was part of the sexual abuse. The same description was given by Grace, or by Grace's representative. Turn up at a day centre, filthy, doubly incontinent, destroyed, having to be washed and cleaned by the centre. Putting herself, undressing, putting herself into a sexualised position that she would have never have known about. Lying down with her legs apart. Are you going to ignore all of that? It's not me saying it. It's there in their various reports by whistleblowers and by the staff within the HSE. You can't walk away from this. The senior person involved, social worker, but senior in terms of in administration as well, was never shown this file. He didn't know that Grace existed. It was kept from him. The file was kept elsewhere. And he did not know. It was a cover-up from start to finish. And every report since then has been a cover-up and a whitewash. And I don't say that lightly, Oireachtas. I don't say that lightly. And I got a text this morning from another woman who said, please don't let them forget my daughter. And I noted in the note, handwritten notes by the way, of every single meeting with the HSE. And I noted in it where the HSE's first reaction was, my God, this will destroy the corporate image of the HSE. We will have to stop it in its tracks. It's written in the various reports that I found. That is true. So are we going to leave that too and walk away from it? Are we going to allow those within the HSE at the time who knew everything about Grace? Are we going to allow them to walk away, do nothing? Front page papers scream headlines of corruption, of abuse, and so on. So tell me this, financial abuse, dealt with curtly in terms of the report, glossed it over. Not one single penny did Grace have when she finished in that home. She had no bank account. None. That's fraud in terms of the social welfare payments and where the money went. But we're not going to look at that according to the Farrelly Commission. We then go to sexual abuse. Bruised breasts, thighs, black eyes, and God knows what else. And an accusation that she was sexually abused and implements were inserted into her. Now, does that not cause you to be concerned that it's not just one case, it's other cases, and it's men and women. Young men and women. Non-verbal men and women. And we're just going to leave it go. So, yes, there is a case there for sexual abuse. The guards thought so. They sent 5 files to the DPP. Then we have, I did the financial abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse. When a child turns up in a daycare centre and doubly incontinent, destroyed, clothes filthy, hair unkempt, eating all around her, her food, everybody else's food. That's contained in their reports. Does that not ring alarm bells? Did the Commission not see that? Did it not understand it? Now, in the course of the Commission's report, I couldn't read it all, but I did read some of the transcript. And I saw where, as I said, the most senior person at the time did not know anything about Grace. Another person sent in a not a protected disclosure, a submission to the Commission, delivered it by hand to the HSE in Lacken. And the Commission contacted him sometime later and said, "Have you nothing to say?" But he said, I gave in a submission. I typed it up myself, I went through everything in detail, and I got it signed for it. The Commission didn't have it. The Commission didn't have it. And it's a similar thing all the way along through it. You can go back to the Public Accounts Committee and what happened thereafter. But the whistleblowers will tell you that in spite of all of the correspondence that they entered into, the key correspondence was never replied to, it was never acknowledged. That's why the greatest reports that are there to help are the reports that were written up by the social workers. They mustn't have been read by the Commission. They'd make a stone cry, so they would. And this was the social workers telling us this. Then we had in the transcripts again from the Commission, when an official from the HSE was being cross-examined on how they would approach things legally, it was put to that person that what he had been describing was actually legal subterfuge. And he was asked twice in cross-examination, do you mind if I describe it like that? Is that the way the HSE would work? Is that what you mean by it? Ah, yeah, he said, you can call it that. As casual as you like. Probably knowing full well he was going to get away with it. In that Commission, the HSE was armed to the teeth with lawyers of one kind and another. They cross-examined in a brutal way some of the witnesses. In a brutal way. And when a witness wished then to cross-examine someone else, they had to do it themselves. No legal protection, no legal representation. So there's so much wrong with this report, and Minister, so much wrong with what the government is suggesting, that we now give it to somebody else. Dogs will bark and the caravan will move on. I hope to God that there's enough people in this House, across all of the political parties, that will put down some sort of motion to bring the spotlight back on the HSE, the South Eastern Health Board, and insist that they be asked to come before us. And by the way, Chairman, in conclusion, I believe that the Farrelly Commission and others should be brought before a committee of this House so that the content of these reports can be teased out.
Thank you, Deputy.
It cannot be let go.
Okay, thank you.
Like, share, and subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.